Okay, I think we're probably ready to start. I think you know from messages in the chat that this webinar is being recorded. So it would be great if you could remain muted with your cameras off until we get to the questions. So I'm delighted to introduce the first of four webinars emerging from the Public Voices in AI project. And before I introduce our speakers, I would just like to offer a brief summary of what it was that we did on the Public Voices in AI project. So we were a year-long project that really wanted to embrace the importance of including different people's opinions, feelings, and attitudes into decision making about AI. And we argue that this is important because, AI comes with opportunities, but with that, of course, as we know, also comes some risks and some harms to particular parts of society. So we're really keen to ensure that if AI is going to progress, we should secure a social contract for investment in AI, and that we're able to empower policymakers to make good AI decisions. And this will enable policy and developers to build the AI-enabled society that we really want in order to fill the public voice gap in existing conversations and bridge gaps caused by unequal AI impacts and the different capacities to influence AI systems. Now, we were a huge year-long project with a number of different streams of work. We reviewed a whole bunch of pieces of evidence from across the world of how different people feel about AI. We conducted a survey with different AI researchers to understand how they feel about AI and about people's opinions and its importance to them. We produced a number of resources, including a framework, some toolkits. We have a webtoon of reflecting on how different people feel. And we also did a national survey which spoke to a higher proportion of people from marginalized communities. And finally, we spoke to community researchers and worked with the wonderful People's Panel in AI, and that's who you're going to hear from today. So first of all, I'm going to introduce Tim from Connected by Data, who will be talking about the Public Voices in AI People's Advisory Panel. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Susan. And in a moment, we'll be joined by Margaret and Anna as well. So I'm going to give you just a very brief overview of what was quite a meta piece of the project. So maybe for the next slide, our role was engaging with the public about the process of engaging with the public. So as Susan has outlined, the PVI program was quite a big, complicated research program run by people who've been thinking a lot about public engagement in their research, in their work over many years, but who are also committed to practicing what they preached and involving public advisors in helping shape the research program overall. So on the next slide is what we're going to tell you very briefly about how we convened this panel. We're going to hear from Margaret, one of the panel members, about her experiences, hear from Anna, our lead facilitator, about reflections on this particular way of working, and then look ahead a little on what happened. So on the next slide is just the brief for what that People's Advisory Panel was. It was 6 members of the public from across the UK who we recruited from past experiences of public engagement. So rather than starting from scratch, we looked for people who've been part of the People's Panel on AI that we ran around the AI Safety Summit, who've been involved in work with the Royal Academy of Engineering or in patient involvement and in other settings, to come together with those experiences of being public participants and help PVAI think about how it reaches out more to wider groups of public participants. And we did that as Connected by Data, which is a non-profit organisation committed to communities having a powerful voice in decisions about data and AI. On the next slide, I'm not going to read through in depth, but it's just a picture of the journey we went through. So PVI kicked off sort of early last year. By June, we were recruiting that panel. And over the course of the year, we had 6 different sessions inputting into PVI's work, but also with that group inputting into wider actions such as work from the Department of Science, Industry and Technology on a digital centre of government and practicing some of that wider engagement too. And in March this year, the panel members were part of the dissemination of PVI research as well. But rather than me explaining a lot about what happened, what I really love to do is hand to one of our panel members who we've had the absolute pleasure of working with both on the People's Panel on AI and on this now advisory group, Margaret, who hopefully will be able to turn on her camera on mute and share with you a little of what the experience of being a participant has been.
Well, now, I was asked to speak about my whole thoughts about the whole prospect, the process of public participation, my thoughts on it from the beginning to where we are now. And as such, I have written a script, as I always do, when I'm taking part in anything like this. So I'm just going to actually read it because these are my thoughts. I hope it's sort of on the subject. It's about participation in general, but then with additional information about the actual PVAI project. So here goes. I'm Margaret, a former librarian, now retired, an ordinary member of the public with no scientific or technical background. Currently, my days are spent working on a voluntary basis for a local charity in their tea room, a role I enjoy, but one which doesn't really involve much in the way of deep thinking. And I confess, I thought my days of learning were long over. It's all too easy to be oblivious to what's going on in the world around you. I didn't need to concern myself with decisions outside of my control, merely content to remain safely cocooned within my comfort zone, never looking beyond the repetitious daily routine. Admitting to this in retrospect, I'm shocked to realise how much I could have missed had the Sortition Foundation not contacted me, originally back in 2019 to become part of a locally based People's Jury on Climate Change, and more recently in 2023 to take part in the People's Panel on AI. The intervening years have seen a whirlwind of events taking place, fascinating, challenging, and totally life-changing. It's been like being reborn. My brain is now fully switched on, and I revel in this ability to constantly absorb new information, thirsty for knowledge, eager to learn, determined to fully embrace every opportunity for discussion, debate, and deliberation. All of this has come my way purely by chance, and I'm forever grateful to now be part of this people-powered network. Speaking to others among my newfound acquaintances, it seems we agree that participation makes such a difference to us as individuals on a personal level, boosting confidence and engendering a greater sense of self-worth. We are constantly inspired by group facilitators who aim to put deliberative democracy into action by helping citizens become more active and to have increasing influence within their communities. This then is the essence of people-powered participation. These citizens' assemblies, juries, and panels bring together randomly selected groups of everyday people who reflect the diversity of the wider population. Organisations like Connected by Data then help them to hold better, more informed conversations, supporting these participants as they share experiences and opinions, arranging for expert advice to be available, and ultimately assisting in the compilation of recommendations, which often involve highly contested issues of public policy and topics of public concern. The benefit of being part of any such selected group of individuals, be it a panel or a jury, comes from having a platform from which to voice thoughts and opinions which would otherwise remain unheard. Ordinary members of the public are capable of forming opinions on any given subject, providing they have been adequately educated themselves. For far too long, we as mere citizens have been told what to do. The idea of querying decisions made in high places has never been an option. Without a platform from which to present thoughts, opinions, and questions, as raised by the average member of the public, there is little an individual can do by way of implementing change. But public participation is empowering. Just having that knowledge that you can confidently speak out and be listened to, express opinions which could ultimately make a difference, both rarely, previously both previously rarely an option. This concept is groundbreaking. Quite possibly, we may voice concerns otherwise overlooked, approaching technical subject matter from a completely different perspective to the experts in the field. It must be remembered that our grasp of complex technology may be limited, but what we lack in specialized knowledge, we make up for with vital life skills and lived experience. After being a member of the original People's Panel on AI, I have been involved in a series of other AI-related events and activities, often being asked to describe my experiences as a panel member, but additionally updating and increasing my knowledge along the way. This latest project, The Public Voice in AI, has recently concluded with an appearance in the House of Commons, surely the pinnacle of our combined achievements so far. The PVAI group consisted of 6 members of the public from across the UK, all with some earlier experience of AI-related participation, and the group's objective was to keep the public voice front and centre in all AI research, development, use and policy. It must be noted that there is a definite need for this self-same objective to be constantly and continually ongoing, as all the aforementioned aspects are moving forward at rapid speed. And to be truly effective, we need to keep our fingers on the pulse to protect our fellow citizens against unregulated advancements that we might not necessarily consider progress, such as the dangers of unmonitored online sites or the harmful distribution of private data. In an effort to embrace inclusivity, the panel centred on those groups of society classed as marginalised in some way, either by being underrepresented or digitally excluded. We found the different groups are impacted in a variety of ways. There are those for whom AI could be particularly helpful, yet at the same time difficult to access. Our colleagues taking part today are ably addressing some of those needs. From a personal perspective, I am always ready to highlight the plight faced by many of the older generation, those who have been required to accept the greatest level of change over their lifetime, and for whom digital evolution and modern technology remain bewildering and often distressing. I have written a couple of articles on this theme, published online by Connected by Data, and I remain adamant that their particular needs must always be recognised and taken into consideration. As a group, we continue to be concerned about the lack of overall public knowledge on AI and its impact on so many areas of our lives. There is a need for education aimed at all ages to understand both the positives and negatives involved here. And during our concluding PVAI sessions, we were introduced to an amazing concept currently being created by Susan Oman, the Webtoon, a means of introducing basic knowledge of AI in the familiar and well-loved cartoon format. We hope to plaster these cartoon images across the country as the lasting legacy of our PVAI journey and as a means of passing on the information and knowledge that we ourselves have been privileged to receive.
Thank you so much, Margaret. And on the next few slides, you've got some photos of the panel presenting this work. And as Margaret says, it's been an experience both individually and collectively. And Anna has been facilitating us on that. I want to just turn to Anna for a few brief reflections on that journey.
Yeah, if we can get come to the next slide, I think it is. Or until we get to, yeah, fantastic. And then one more. Very fantastic. So I just wanted to reflect on a few learnings, and there is a blog post around this as well. So if anyone wants to dig into the detail, they're very welcome or happy to take questions. But this was just some of our learnings, having worked with the wonderful panel that Margaret's just described. And the first one is, and perhaps the most important one, is about choosing the right participants. So we were really lucky, but we kind of engineered some of that luck by finding people who'd worked on things before, so they had some benefits, so they could work. They weren't starting from scratch, but were also already drawing on some experience that they'd had participating in different journeys. So that was really helpful. Our second one was around allowing time to settle in and starting early. So that's 2 in 1 really. But allow time to settle in just means if you just jump straight into how are we going to be an advisory group for this project, then it doesn't give people time to kind of settle into just having shared their own thoughts and kind of bond and work together. So really important to have that kind of lead-in time so that people get familiar with the role of an advisory group as opposed to just a participant in research, because it's a different hat people need to wear. And Margaret and co did it very well, but it just took time to kind of get into that way of thinking. And starting early. So I think one of the frustrations of the panel was that we got involved a little bit later than we'd have liked, because all of the work packages were already agreed, and that's just the nature of the funding cycle. But I think we would really put out a plea, if it's possible, to get the public more involved in designing the work packages themselves. Ask the right questions feels like an obvious one, but again, that's just about making sure that we are asking people stuff that is in their expertise. So there's no point asking a member of the public how you should do a particularly technical thing, whether that be how you set up an AI, or it could be or their views on even how to engage sometimes. But actually what they are really experts in is, how do we get to you? How do we find you? Like, what's the best ways of getting messages to you? Or indeed, how do we set up this in a way that you can answer the question? So we had some really good feedback on the materials we were using, for example. And then finally, innovate. We had great fun with this panel because we managed to use, they were on board with learning about AI as we went, so we were able to use AI throughout. We had a competition between me versus the AI in doing a write-up, and I'm happy to say I won, but we'll see how long that lasts for. We also used AI speakers at one point, where we actually had videos of an AI talking about their role as a data analyst, or their role as a specialist working in AI, and that was a really nice way of bringing things to life and kind of just gave it a different tone. And so definitely something I would encourage using in the future. But do check out the blog, and I will pass over to Tim to say a little bit more about where things have gone now.
Thank you. And if we go 2 slides forward, I want to just close, because we're tight for time, just with some of the messages from the panel's final kind of meeting. And you've heard some of this from Margaret already, but we put together an op-ed that will be shared in the chat as well, on, as we got to the end of this project, what more beyond PVAI did the panel want to see, and that real key message of different groups experiencing AI differently, and the need to bring conversations across the country that PVAI really practiced as a program. And you'll hear from some of those conversations across the country in a moment, but there were some really good reminders that both including marginalized voices, but recognizing in the AI conversation, almost no one's been involved in it yet. So there's so many communities needing to join that conversation. A real theme from our particular panel around education, AI in education, and getting educated about AI. And lots of conversation about who's responsible for engaging the public. PVAI as a program within Responsible AI UK was maybe focused on AI builders and developers to some extent, but we were also saying that it's business leaders, compliance officers, project managers, political leaders who all have a role and responsibility for public engagement. As we do that, we need to keep vision, values, and the so what question at the center of any thinking about innovation. Constant question of, when we have the public in the room, the question becomes, well, that might be technically interesting, but how does it make a difference to our lives? And that presence and public voice in the room is a powerful tool, whether we're researchers, developers, practitioners, policymakers. And recognizing critically, not everyone wants to participate, but everyone should have the opportunity to do so. And really that building of public capacity to be active citizens in AI. So just lastly, in closing, on the next slide is some of what is connected by data we're taking away from our learning being part of this. If I can have the next slide up, please. We are really thinking more about that need for engagement infrastructure. How do we make it much easier for projects, research projects, practice projects, to access public input? And how do we make sure publics who get engaged are not then left on their own, but have those opportunities to come together and continue to act as advocates for different interests, different voices, a plurality of approaches to AI, and be supported. In our own work, we're thinking a lot now, learning from the panel about AI in education, and we'll have some work coming up this year on how do we do better public engagement around AI in schools and other education settings. And lastly, we've been thinking a lot about, when publics get engaged, how are they then campaigners and advocates as well as participants? And so I'll put in the chat as well a link to our work on community campaigns on data that we've been thinking more how we link participation, not just to telling power holders what they should do, but also shifting who holds power in shaping our digital futures. So I will leave it there, and you'll hear many more inspiring stories, hopefully from other parts of PVAI.
Thanks so much, Tim and Anna, and especially Margaret. Poor Tim and Anna always get always get second billing once Margaret's spoken. So I'm going to hand over to Xavier now from the Workers Observatory, who will talk about the work that they did for Public Voices in AI. So welcome, Xavier.
Hello, Susan. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks all for organizing this today to talk about our projects too. Our project was called the platform Worker Voice in a Data-Driven City, as you can see there. And some of the main features that we can talk about on this project are we've been building up on our own previous knowledge. Some of the people involved in the observatory we have been riders ourselves in the past, and we were building this on Edinburgh's Spanish-speaking and South Asian communities to reach the riders, the delivery riders in the city. So we really focus on these marginalized voices, migrants, and that usually don't have many chances to engage because, well, sometimes working conditions and conditions or material conditions for them are really, really tough. So we decided to focus on this. We used a process of workers inquiry. So basically giving the workers the tools to inquire themselves about the working conditions and what was going on, what was happening with the platform. And essentially to discuss and pool with this tacit knowledge of AI and how they perceive the use of AI by the platforms that they are working for. We're talking about Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eat, and so on. And then we decided to put a focus on fees because it's something that is very obviously the most relevant thing for workers. And through this, you will see later, this led to another kind of conversations also related to how these AI algorithmically managed systems actually are shaping work within the gig work in general, and particularly for delivery riders. So some of these main outputs, briefly to comment here because we don't have that much time. So these workshops were attended by 20 riders in total, but in the process, we engaged with hundreds of riders across the city, which was very relevant and very good actually for the project to stay alive also in the future, as we will see now. So we designed also and circulated a survey on working conditions in the next weeks after these workshops took place. And this generated a lot of engagement also with the council. We will talk about this later a little bit more, but we've been there a few times since the project started, and because basically through this project we've been able to shape a voice with riders that didn't exist before. So there is a public engagement through the way that the explanation of how these platforms interact through these AI managed systems with riders, and this collective now got their own voice and can talk to different entities that when needed, and then they know also who they have to talk to. So this is interesting, and this is especially crystallized in the creation of Room, which is the Edinburgh Riders Collective. Again, we will talk about this a little bit later. But was very, very exciting because it was coming from just the workshop, specific funding for a specific project that was this, and then through this engagement, we end up creating something more solid that is still right now working and actually giving good results. But this is just a moment on the workshops. It was really good because this really helped also migrants with different backgrounds to be aware that at the end of the day, the issues are the same. We were talking specifically about technology, about fees, about how the fees were calculated. this was really helping to recognize each other. One of the big issues that we identified through this program was how isolated, alienated workers can feel during this work, because the way that you work with the app actually encourages you to isolate you, to compete with others, and well, all this really breaking down these barriers among the riders was by far one of the most exciting things about this project. We then catalyzed all this on an event that took place the 12th of December, and it was a great moment to bring together not only the riders again, but different people in the public that wanted to engage with this: third sector organizations, researchers, flex work focus organizations. So we were able to open the debate beyond the workers, although the workers are obviously at the forefront of the project, but actually being able to understand better the perspectives of others, and also showing our perspective of what's going on, so we can reach the broader public that usually they are not very aware about what are the working conditions there, and what is the role that AI is playing on this, which is crucial. And one of the things that we presented there, that was the big highlight, was the survey. So the survey was very useful to see how in general the workers were perceiving themselves, and also what was the main issues that they were facing basically with these systems that are AI managed by these platforms. So some of the most impactful thing, I mean, this is crazy. Like the idea of the 45% of them have got the bike, most of them stolen in the last few months. So this is crazy, and this is a trend that is still happening. So this was for us was shocking. It's not directly related maybe with AI, but it was related with the job. Two-thirds of them think that don't get tips sometimes, and 10% think that the tips got stolen all the time through the platform. So these very same systems. We have to recall here that this is not someone checking every person. It's just a system that is supervised, obviously, but it's also related to this. And then well, two-thirds of them got the food delivery as the only source of income, so they are very dependent on these systems. And then 30% got involved in any accident in the last over 6 months. So, well, just to show a little bit what was the situation here. And then, well, we've been generating impact through articles on different places here: Bella Caledonia, the National, the Scottish Review. We're still right now generating this. And so this leads to a few conclusions that we just want to summarize here, like very briefly. And I'm here handling this with my colleague Talan. Talan, hello.
Hello everyone. So thanks Xavi for that. And all I wanted to do was transition to the video that workers made, just with the following comments. So the invitation to think through public voices in AI, where we're working with workers, is interesting because AI and its effects aren't clearly visible to workers, but they determine and affect every aspect of work for food delivery and other platform users. So through the process of inquiry, workers were able to uncover and understand the way in which AI was being used to deactivate their accounts, to guide their routes across the city, and above all, to drive down their rates of pay. Now, the driving down of rates of pay then has effects on how people work in terms of the pace they have to go to get a minimum income, the ways in which they relate to others through a competitive environment. All of the issues that are grounded in those systems that workers haven't necessarily thought through, but now on the basis of which workers are building a voice around. So through understanding AI, it gives a real grounding of understanding to the campaigning and activity that workers have been taking forward. And I just wanted to say that as a little introduction to the video that hopefully Xavi will now share for us to take another just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, hello. We are here just solving like tech issues because we are not sure if we can actually show this video right now. But Shall we try? If not, we can just send the link and people can see the video yourself. It's a 3-minute video that we produce with the riders that show a little bit this process. Susan, whatever you say.
Well, we can try and share it. Is it only a couple of minutes long? Because we are a bit running over.
It's 3 minutes long.
Okay, let's try and share it then, Xavier. Do you need me to unshare?
Yeah, maybe if you can do that, because I'm here, I don't know how to manage this. Sorry.
Equally, people could look at it in their own time. I've put it in the list there. So maybe if time is short, then perhaps
Yeah, of course.
there, and we say go and have a look at the video, and it'll be great to hear any thoughts that anybody has as well.
I think that might be best. Thanks, Colleen. Did you two have anything else you wanted to say?
We were just going to finish with the video, but I guess just to close and say thanks very much to the PVII team and all the learning process that's enabled us to think through how to do participative learning and engagement around issues that aren't obviously relevant to people's daily lives, but which through this process, I think a lot of people have realized are really vital for engaging with and understanding how the world's changing in ways that affect them every single day. So it's been a brilliant learning process for all of us, for all of the workers involved. So yeah, that's really all we wanted to say as a kind of final thought, and it's been great working with everyone. And yeah,
we will learn from you as well. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, so now we will hand over to Margot and Mikey from the People Speak.
Hello, can everybody hear me okay? I hope yes. Welcome. My name is Margot and I'm here with Mikey. He's going to join me here around this glowing table of chat. We are the People Speak Art Collective, and the project we came to talk to you about is called Knowing AI, Knowing You, and Iconic. There are two projects that we run along with two artists, Mukul Patel and Manu Luksh, founders of Ambient Information Systems, and their work is really interesting. It spans film, music, sculpture, and their work interrogates concepts of progress through the devising of tools and frameworks with a strong emphasis on the research and dissemination. For this particular project, we set out to understand and help articulate beliefs and concerns about AI held by two groups from Tower Hamlets, Borough of East London. They are Streets of Growth, a charity supporting vulnerable young teenagers at risk of harm, and also adults from the mental health charity Mind. And really what we did, we kind of started by asking the participants whether they encountered AI, how they felt about it, and what they understood AI to be. And also we realized that there is a big need for those public voices to be included in the conversations around AI, and to connect with policymakers and other bodies in a more kind of dialogue-based way. And we used creative approaches to interrogate these questions. What I wanted to say a little bit is about us as the People Speak. As I mentioned, we are an art collective of artists representing different art genres, and we've got 28 years of experience helping people to understand each other and collectively process the complexity of the world. We are based in Poplar. We've got a sign on our door saying come in and chat, and this is how it goes. Every day somebody pops in and has a chat, and for us it's a deliberate welcoming approach which we brought into this project too. We create fun and interactive participatory formats in the UK but also abroad, and one such format is Talkioki, which I will just show you. This is what it looks like. And I'm sitting in a Talkioki table, so hopefully this makes sense. And we often say that we produce tools for the world to take over itself, because for us, it's about getting people to, maybe grab the mic, speak on the mic, build up their courage to get involved in something like a conversation about AI without maybe necessarily feeling they're qualified to be part of this conversation. We think everybody's invited and included. And then about our formats are kind of deliberately using popular media formats to make them accessible. Everybody understands how a talk show works or a game show works, and this is what we like playing with. But really, the idea is that these formats articulate collective imagination, inform public decision making, but really deepen connections between diverse groups of people, and that we move to culture of participation really through that. And these are just some of the subjects that you find us discussing with different groups of people. Obviously, AI and technology, they can't really exist, those conversations can't really exist without a wider context. So that's what we explored in these projects. This is talking with some of the participants from both groups participating. Now, what I wanted to say about the project with Public Voices in AI is we used a mix of creative approaches from our discursive talk show, as I mentioned, but also we used filmmaking, music making, and sculpture just to provoke the responses of people to AI and really bring into for their day-to-day experiences. And in the end, we created a film which represented people's experiences. That little slide, the little image that you can see on the slide behind me is is just a shadow theater, tactical fiction project or approach rather, where participants enacted fictional scenes from their lives about their interactions with AI. And really, I just want to emphasize that through this kind of this approach, we built trust with participants and gave them boosts of confidence to be involved creatively, but also practically with their thoughts in this project. And we like imaginative approach, so that's yeah. Go on, Mikey.
I think when you get people involved creatively, it's not just about, do I like AI, what do I want from it, but actually thinking about the possibilities and the future possibilities. And I think then you enter into a different realm where you're actually thinking, what can AI do for me? How can it harm me in a more imaginative way? And when you're thinking about the future, nobody really knows how AI is going to drop and how it's going to influence us. But these people have got just as much of a view as anyone else, and that's really nice to get creative and explore that a little bit.
So yeah, these are just some of the main themes that came up. By no means are they the only things that came up, because as I mentioned before, we cross between different areas and subjects. Everything's connected. It's one of our maxims at The People Speak. Trust was very important, not just a trust between participants and ourselves, but really with the tech companies and authorities really.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment we're in a place where all institutions are kind of losing a sense of trust from communities, and obviously the more marginalised the community, the less the trust is. The young people we were working with from very sort of vulnerable situations, and they really didn't have any trust, and the older people definitely felt that as something which has eroded a lot from when they were younger.
Also, we talked about authorities, but also where is information coming from and the provenance. That was interesting to people. Where are these different facts and opinions in social media? Where do they actually come from? Then we talked about terms and conditions as something that is just it's just out there. In order to use services or access certain type of information, you need to sign T&Cs, but do we actually know what we're signing? And obviously it's hard when you've got dyslexia or any other barriers. We work with participants with literacy barriers as well. But you can be just a fully functioning human being and still struggle with the length of these T's and C's.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a general feeling, especially among the older people, of a kind of technological oppression, of which AI was just one part, where they felt they were forced to enter the online world. It wasn't something that they were doing by choice, but they had to do to access services mostly. And the T&Cs is kind of the most obvious kind of striking point to that, but there's a general sense of feeling disempowered, I think, from technology.
And just to conclude, I mean, people obviously the participants interacted with. We interacted with As I said, come in and chat. Somebody's trying to come into our studio and chat, but not right now. So we talked about health services and access to that. People said, you know, I would rather talk to a rude human than to a stupid chatbot. So that kind of need for human connection it was very important to people, and that's really important in our practice as well. And as I mentioned, we have created a film, which if you can, I've dropped the link in the chat, so you can have a look at our blog, read more about the project and people involved, but also watch the films that we created with participants, or you can scan this QR code, very snazzy. But yes, what I wanted to say, this is us, by the way. Feel free to follow us and just check out our work, because for us, the conversations with community, they've not stopped there. The conversations continue. In fact, we are working with these participants even now on different other aspects, and it's so amazing that we had the opportunity to really zone in on the conversations about technology and AI and see them now ripple through all the other work that we do with people. One thing about this particular project was that it was truncating a small chunk of time. For us, this work really grows, expands, and it reaches beyond tight timeframes. So yes, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Margot. Okay, we're ready for questions now. Did anyone, I can see one question in the chat. Any other questions? Oh, this is a nice question from the Centre for Care. What did you all learn from the other community projects? What did you learn from each other? Would you like to go first, Margot? I think you're still on.
Oh, am I still on camera? From each other, meaning from other projects who presented today?
Well, yes, and the other ones that maybe aren't here today, that when you all met at Parliament or whatever.
I mean, what was interesting is we are quite, you know, we're in the same borough as the Migrants' Rights Network, so we kind of made connection through at the Parliament. And it was just interesting to see how they are, you know, how that their work helps individuals who are looking for asylum in this country. But because Tower Hamlets, which is the borough that we're both in, is very diverse, we are connecting with them because you know, and we will be running some projects together. We will be running a Talkioki series of Talkioki pop-up talk shows to get those voices who are marginalized more kind of brought into the conversations about the community at large.
I mean, I just want to say the experience of going to Parliament, and actually we didn't really speak to many politicians, but we did speak to a lot of different people that were researching AI from a much wider perspective. And I think, you know, obviously there's some commonalities there. I think, you know, obviously we started off with the process, with the first presentation about the process of engaging people. And I think what became clear with this project is a diversity of different strategies actually will give more insight. So, you know, in a way, my one takeaway is just have an incredibly diverse set of approaches to find out stuff. And I think that's what's exemplary about this project.
Yeah, we are definitely for a range of approaches. Hi, Kylie, do you have something to add?
Yeah, so I guess one of the things we learned when we were meeting the other groups and talking, I think there was a similar sense from other groups. Are we really involved in AI-affected issues? There's this huge AI discourse. There's this huge academic and government and narrative about what AI is that is linked with tech companies and all the rest of it, where sometimes it's not entirely clear whether that's the same as the experiences of people that we've been working with. And one thing that's clear is there are material connections there. And I think thinking through what those are for people who are in communities has been really, really helpful in comparing them. But also I think having the confidence to muscle into this space and say, look, there are serious ways in which this is changing people's lives, and those affected need to have a voice in this. And we're going to insist. So it's almost been a sort of collective confidence building exercise, I think, about saying there's a stake for this group, that group. Because otherwise what happens is AI, as you said at the beginning, Susan, affects without being affected. And I think that's the worst AI world we can imagine. So.
Thank you. And Anna, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think I was just going to reflect that the panel, I think, learned a lot from the other outputs of the program as well. So there's obviously future webinars where you can hear all about those. So plug for the future webinars. But I think things like seeing the statistics on what public attitudes were more broadly, and we found really interesting. But equally, Susan, you've already had your web team plugged once, but again, that was a really good, I think, learning opportunity for them as well. I think obviously we're not general public anymore because we have spent so much time talking about AI, but still there's a lot to learn. So I think it was a real learning journey through the different materials that were developed across the PVAI program.
Yeah, and I think as Margot's just said, AI and tech ripples through all of the other concerns. It's cross-cutting, isn't it? Okay, so riffing off your comment, Anna, Roz has placed a comment in the Q&A function about how do we ensure that all the different creations mentioned have a life after the project. So obviously there's the Workers Observatory film, and then there's the wonderful things that you've made at People Speak. So would you like to go first, Margot? Sorry, I keep picking on you first.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I mean, we are obviously shouting about the project wherever and whenever we can. We've printed out booklets which kind of summarize our approach and main findings. So we've been posting that to people, just getting that,
If anyone wants a booklet, we can post it to you because we've got some spare. So anyone in the chat wants one, just let us know.
Yeah. But I think for us, it's also, advocating for this work, but also just working with the participants that we worked with the Streets of Growth young people, and with the people from Mind, and just really bringing more participants into this discussion. So we do a lot of work here on our street, in Aberfeldy Street, in Tower Hamlet, and yeah, it's just kind of bringing people into the fold. So then the thresholds to participation come next project around AI or anything else, that it will be much easier to bring those people in. And for us, it's about really those genuine voices. And it's an ongoing work. So we kind of do that all the time.
I think, when the project stops, the relationship with all those people doesn't stop. We carry on, and we're actually working creatively with quite a few of them now on a different project. And I think for me as well, just that sense of like, how do you consult the wider public about anything, be it, especially things that are going to have a kind of paradigm shift for our whole society. This should be happening all the time and be part of our culture. And I think that's another thing we're trying to do as well, is actually speak to government, speak to local authorities, and try to get them a bit more open-minded about how they talk to people.
Thank you. Agreed. Kylene.
So specifically on creations, where the question is how do we make the creations live, as it were. I think that it's consolidating the group to give them a sense that these are their creations to take out into the world. So there's one of the creations was this little kind of unfolding flyer, which explains the process that workers went through, the survey results, but invites people into the conversation. So it's combining here's what we discovered with, and we're looking to do more in the future, so get involved. And that's sort of what the video did too. And it's also a guide that I shared in to how you can run a survey yourself. So it's trying to figure out not just here's what we made, but here's how you could go about creating something similar. And then let's have a conversation about the comparison of that process to see if we can learn again and again. So we're building that through policy engagement, showing the video to councillors and decision makers. And there's now an international engagement where we're speaking to people in Kolkata, Chennai, Denver, Toronto, various places to try and make sure that they are also doing creative stuff, and that these creations become part of a global thing rather than just emanating from one place, which gives a lot of energy and I think pride to people who have made these things, to show that they're resonating. So yeah, it's keeping up the energy to ensure that continues. Obviously, it takes more work, but it's certainly worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely. That's exciting. Thanks. Anna, did you have anything to add?
I was just going to say, I think this program has been really exciting because it's doing such a plethora of different ways to disseminate, from the kind of, I think you're planning a special edition of an academic journal coming up, through to Connected by Data
Oh no, Anna. We've lost what Anna's doing next. Anna, we've lost your response, so we might ask you to put it in the chat.
There's just a call for school to vote and check.
Okay, Anna, we missed you because your Wi-Fi dropped. So if you could pop what Connected by Data is doing next into the chat, then we can share it with people. From a Public Voices and AI overarching project point of view, I do just want to mention the website, which actually hosts all of these resources. Now, I looked at the webpage this morning and it's quite dizzying because actually there are so many outputs created by all the different facets of the project. So that page will get a redesign soon, but it just goes to show the wealth of the resources out there. And as Anna, I am sure, pointed towards, there is a movement on a national level involving people beyond this webinar and the Public Voices and AI project, including other people from Connected by Data, looking to kind of move this conversation from beyond even national government to an international movement towards including public voices and participatory AI and raising the profile of that. Okay, so Alex Haynes has said, great to see all the work going into engaging these communities and local groups on the issues. Do you all use an agreed central method or body for measuring awareness impact at national level? I suspect not, but I will pass over to each of the speakers to answer that question, if you don't mind.
Shall I go first?
Yes.
Was that the invitation? I mean, because we are a small art collective, what we are very good at is we are very good at doing. What we are not as good as is in collecting data and measuring it properly. That's why I think it's very important to for project to have that kind of collaborative relationship with people, for instance, academics, or people who who are experts in measuring impact to support the work that's happening on the ground. And that's something that we find we're not an isolated case out there in the world of arts and culture or community art. People are just really very good at the doing, not capturing the impact. So for this project, yeah, we just I don't know, we just use some basic metrics.
I would maybe just turn the question back to Alex or to anyone really. What would that be? What would that kind of agreed shared methodology be? I mean, I'm just interested in it. It's not something that we really know that much about.
Susan, you've got your hand up.
Well, I would imagine that there's a number of different ways of answering this. One is that the things that you've been up to are just not possible to measure using metrics, but that the overarching Public Voices and AI project is a slave to evaluation processes. So we'll be collecting data from you in ways that you're able to share it, that we then have to translate, that go into the machine of metrics of our funders and so on. So this stuff doesn't get lost, but I suppose there is a question there of how much these metrics capture the actual value, material contribution of all of the amazing work that you did and your participants.
I mean, it's certainly
No, carry on, sorry.
I mean, certainly having that strong evaluation case, with us, or to hand, stuff that you are kind of compiling, it's extremely powerful, because that really is telling a story in a different way, not, anecdotal evidence, of which we have plenty, may not be the right way of communicating the impact to different stakeholders. So I think having a variety of different ways of measuring the impact is really great. But just to give you an example, the work that we do, we've been in this area for 9 years. After 9 years, we started working with the participants, including people from Public Voices in AI. And suddenly in 2 months, we engaged 100 people. And the reason why we know this is because we're kind of made to do the evaluation. So we hate it, but it kind of...
Oh, Margot, you've muted yourself somehow. Maybe if we could hear from Workers Observatory quickly, because we're in the final minutes.
Yeah, so I guess it's an interesting question, partly because in an academic environment, the Workers Observatory is both organising and is linked with the university. There is a notion of impact in a university setting, and where you need to quantify stuff that we're sort of thinking on the ground, what can you quantify here? But actually what it's raised is questions about how you measure voice. What does that mean? Is voice really the word that gets to the heart of what happens when people come together and assert their share research together and assert what they've discovered? And I suppose if that is voice, how do you prove it? Do we consider video to be part of the evidence of impact? Like, I think it's raising all kinds of questions in interesting ways about what we do that can make sure that the durable communities that are being created here, their impact can be quantified and can be demonstrated and can become evidence of the need for more of this going forward.
Agreed. Anna, did you have anything to add before I try and wrap up? Okay. So I'm going to pass over Roz's question, which is a goodie, but it's about this tension between the narratives of growth from national government and how can that possibly be sympathetic to the variety of perspectives that we've heard from, for example, the workers. I do want to pick up on the anonymous attendee who apologises for not posting a question, but instead lobbying for Margaret to take up a new role as the AI czar, to guide the development of AI with her informed and grounded common sense approach. So I second that. But does anyone have any final comments or reflections before we move to wrap up in the next minute or so?
I mean, maybe just a little comment from me. I think obviously these projects have got a lifespan, but what we really are keen for is for everybody to come and just get involved in those conversations. We run a lot of talk shows and other events all around the country. Going to be in Lancashire next month. We are doing a lot of stuff here in London, and really it's just kind of dipping into that conversation at various points, because you just never know what hearing somebody they don't normally interact with, what that can make you think, what it may inspire you to take further to the next project. So I would just put a call out. Don't wait for a project to come to you. Come and chat to people, and just join Talkioki.
Any other final reflections?
I suppose it's a similar thought, really. There's people, I guess the thing about these kind of sessions is I don't know everybody in the room and who you are. So if there's things that have resonated, please do reach out, because we're dead keen to figure out ways that, I think one of the really strong things about the project was that intersectionality of different groups coming together and realizing the common purpose. And I think that could be a kind of ongoing thing that we need to all kind of chip into. So very much open to hearing any thoughts from people by email, or you'll find it on the Workers Observatory website.
Thank you.
All these trajectories need to be ongoing and they need to continue. We're still teetering on the brink of this AI revolution, and there's so much more to be done on an ongoing basis. And our group, we just love to continue with our involvement as representatives of the public in this AI debate, and to be part of shaping its future. Everything needs to be queried, commented on, and from observations as it all moves along. And of course, we've got the webtoon, which I want to speak to you even more about if there's any time.
There will be time, Margaret. There will be time when we close the webinar. Okay, all right. Well, I just want to thank everyone who came to the webinar and to all of our contributors, and to say thank you from Public Voices in AI, and do keep in touch. Well, yes, we have another 3 webinars in the series, which I believe are in the chat, as is a link to the website with all of the outputs. So thank you very much, and well done to everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.